Welcome to Algebra 2. Miss Lisa's Algebra 2. We are going to do a calculator lab where we're going to learn how to graph piecewise functions in our TI-84 graphing calculator. It'll actually work for an 82 or an 83 also. Also, you don't have to be taking Algebra 2 to learn how to do this. Anybody who wants to graph a piecewise function can do this. And if you like the way I explain things, like, share, subscribe. I have a goal. I'm trying to get 1,000. And I have lots of calculator videos. So if you like the way I explain things, then you can go watch all the calculator videos and get really good at your TI-84 calculator. And that will really help your math scores and physics. The better you are at this calculator, the better you're going to do in those classes. And I always tell my students, these calculators are not intuitive. So it really is important that you take time and learn how to do everything. So what we're going to do today is we're going to graph something called a piecewise, or sometimes they're called stepwise functions, depending on what they look like. But that's just fancy math talk. Let me see if I can show you on here. That's just fancy math talk for doing a bunch of things on one piece of graph paper, and you only do certain functions over a certain amount of that graph paper. I know that sounded crazy, didn't it? But let me explain to you what I mean. Like, here's one. And so from this part of the graph, it's one function, it's one equation that you're graphing. And then on this part of the graph, you graph another equation. And then on this part of the graph, you graph another equation. And see how it looks like steps sometimes? That's why they're called stepwise or piecewise. It's like for this part of the graph, we do this line. For this part of the graph, we're doing that line. So that's what it is. And now we're going to go through this. If you are following along in the book, it's on page 121. And this is the calculator lab. Okay, so I'm going to get out my calculator and turn it on, which is that button right there. And that's your regular math screen, but we're not going to be using that one. We're going to be using the graphing function. So we're going to go to y equals and push it. And I've got stuff in there, so I need to clear that out first. So I'm going to use the clear button, and whoop, there it goes. It's more fun with sound effects. All right, so my function that I'm going to graph is this. And it's written really confusing looking, but I like it because it's fancy. Isn't this fancy math? And fancy math is fun math. But all this is, it looks so confusing, but all it is this is just 3 equations that we're going to graph in one piece of graph paper. And remember, f of x, y, and 0 are all weirdly sort of the same thing. So this is the same thing as y equals 3x minus 1, and then y equals 7, and y equals 2x minus 3. But we're graphing these 3 things in 3 different places. So how we tell our calculator to do this is we use parentheses and greater than, equal than signs. So I'm going to show you how to do it. So the first one we're going to put in our calculator is this 3x minus 1. So we go over here and we have to put it in parentheses. So we start with, and you don't normally have to put things in parentheses. We're putting this in parentheses to tell our calculator that we're doing this piecewise function. So I put my beginning parentheses, which was right there, and now I do 3, and this is the button for x. See how it's got x with a bunch of other stuff? And now I say minus, it's this one over here, not that one. The minus goes in the middle. You remember that they both start with the letter M, minus in middle. 3x minus 1. And now I do in parentheses, and now I'm going to tell it the conditions for when it does that, and I say beginning parentheses, and I'm going to say x is less than 2. Where I find, so for x, it's just the x button. Where I find the less than 2 is the second of this math button, which I always say is the ironic button, because aren't they all math? Yes, they are. Okay, so second math, and look, there they are. And the one I need is less than, so I arrow down to less than, and I hit enter, and da-da, there it is. So it's less than 2 in parentheses. Now, to tell them what to do next, I connect these with pluses. So that was my first function, and now I say plus, And now I'm going to do my next function. So I do beginning parentheses, and my next one is just 7. So I'm going to put in 7. And now I do in parentheses, beginning parentheses, where's it going to be 7? And it has x is less than, or 2 is less, x, 2 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 5. Get to focus on that. All right. So how we do that is we're going to use and for the two situations. So my first situation is going to be 2 is less than x. So I'm just going to do less than or equal to x. I'm going to do that one. So now I need to put that in. So I say 2, and now I'm going to go back to second math and go get less than or equal to, which is that one. And now I put in x. Now I have to use the word and. So where you find that is also under second math. But this one, we go over to the word logic, and look, there's the word and I select it. And now I do the next part of it, which is x is less than or equal to 5. So I say x, I go back to math, I go find less than or equal to again, and then I say 5. And then I do in parentheses, and I'm through with that one. Now I say plus again because I have a third one. Remember this one right here. So I'm going to put it in. So I say plus, beginning parentheses, and now I'm going to do 2x minus 3. That's my equation here. 2x minus 3 in parentheses. And now I'm going to say the condition. So I do beginning parentheses. And this one is x is greater than 5. So I do x, go back to second math, go find greater than, which is 3. Hit enter to select it. And now I say 5 in parentheses. And now there's a couple of things that I always like to just graph it and see what happens. So I'm going to do that. And here it should show us our function. It takes a little while. It's got to think about this one. So there's the first part of it. There's the second part of it. And there's the third part of it. Ta-da! And we did it. Normally when you graph these things, you have to do either you do a dot to mean that point's included, or a donut to mean that it's not included. Your calculator's not that fancy. It can't do that. You have to kind of know that yourself. So know that. The other thing is sometimes your calculator will connect everything, especially if you have one of the older TI-82s or 3s. So to make sure it doesn't connect it where it's not supposed to be connecting, you go to mode and you make sure that it's on dot. See how mine says right there, dot thick. Yours might not say yours might not say thick. It might just say dot or dot thick, dot thin. You want to select one of those that say dot. And that was under mode. To get back out of it, you say second mode. That's always quit. All right, so now we did our graph. So let's go back to our graph again. You might need to adjust your window. I think my window's all right, so I'm going to leave it there. But if you have to adjust your window, that's the window button. Or you can go to the zoom button and pick windows that way. I usually like zoom standard. That's probably what I had it on. Let's see if I'll graph it again. If you have the not color calculator, it probably graphs faster. Yeah, it looks like that's why I had it on. All right, so the next thing is they ask us, what is the answer? What is x? What is this equal to when you try different values? So what you do for that is you go to trace, and it tells us, like here, when x is 0, y is -1. Well, they want us to try, what is it when x is 4, is what they had in the book. And that's how they show it to us. F of 4, that means just fancy math for what is y when x is 4. And we use that button trace. And you tell it to it, and it pops it down there. You hit enter, and it tells you the answer right here. It's 7. Then they want to know what about when it's 10? and there it is, it's 17. And those were the two they wanted us to try. Now, I use this trace function for an if-then chart. Because if you were doing this for your teacher in college, you would need an if-then chart for your plots, to plot your points. And this is where I get my plot points, is I use the trace function. Some people like the table function better. I don't. I like this one much better. So I'll make my little if-then chart. I'll get some points, and then that's how you get it from your calculator onto your piece of graph paper or onto however you're turning this in. Because you're not going to show your teacher your calculator. You're going to have to get it from this onto however you're turning it in. And the key to that is the trace button, because it'll tell you, give it an X, and it'll tell you what the Y is. Right? So like we could say 5. And there it is. It's telling us that when X is 5, Y is 7. All right? So I think these are real fun because they're fancy. If you're taking this class for me, be sure to come back and watch the next video. I'm going to show you absolute value, and you're supposed to do that one this week too. If not, you could just come watch absolute value because it's fun. All right? So math is great. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.